Hey, good morning. This is November the 7th, 2024. I'm super excited that this is my second live now. I'm at home, of course. You can see my cabinets and all that good stuff in the background. And this is just one of those things because we're in Texas and we have flies. Um, anyways, that's besides the point. If you're new here, I'm super excited about it. Please subscribe in the bottom. Um, I've decided I was gonna start doing this. I do lives already, on Facebook, uh, and I've started doing a work, that the Lord has had me start doing, uh, and I actually am reading a book called Enough. Rebecca Frenchie is the name of it, and she's a youth pastor's wife in, North Carolina, and she and I have talked a couple of times since I started reading the book. I was actually on my 2nd book. I'm working on my 3rd one now, reading them. I don't write or anything. Uh, but anyways, this book, has really opened my eyes to a lot of things. Lots of tears have been shed, lots of laughter, all that good stuff, because you never know what God's, doing or why he has you, enter any season of your life. So anyways, we're already on chapter 2. If you haven't got to watch my very first video, I did chapter 1. I did the introduction and chapter 1. And this book is a really good book. It only has 9 chapters, but the Lord is doing great things through it. A lot of people that watch my lives on Facebook really enjoy it. Uh, and so if y'all want, when you come in, or watch this video, if you're watching it and it's not a live video, if you could say a rewatch or watching a recording or something like that, so then I kinda know. If you'd like to leave comments, that's great too because, everything is awesome, to hear from everybody, and share the video because I feel like it's God's doing something with every single chapter of the books that I've read, but this is enough, and the name of this chapter says, "That's enough." So, and on the seventh day, God had finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all of his work that he had done. So, God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it, God rested from all his work that he had done in creation. Genesis 2 2 through 3. So, then what do you think when you hear the word enough? Do you think of uh, plenty or scarcity? The irony is that this one word encompasses both. Enough has two distinct meanings: to suddenly stop everything and to have everything you need. We'll uncover the second definition in the next chapter. Let me explain the first definition. Although my parents weren't wealthy, they believed in saving up and taking family vacations every year. Those trips were the highlights of the year. Excuse me. And now they're precious memories. They brought us would spend months carefully planning out the budget itinerary filled with factory tours, packed lunches, and amusement parks. On the day of the trip, my dad would spend the early part of the morning packing all the luggage into our blue van, finding a way to get all the suitcases to fit. After grabbing breakfast, the 6 of us would cram into our van and drive off to Florida to explore Disney World, Pennsylvania to visit Hershey's Chocolate Factory, or Ohio to ride roller coasters at Cedar Point. They all apparently lived up north because we don't have any of those things close to us. Um, Me and my sister Lisa used to take Leah and Matthew, our kids, on vacations, and sometimes we would go to Austin or San Antonio, something that was easy for us because we were single mamas and it was just cheaper to go somewhere close in our vacation days. And that was enough for us because we had to go back to work. But those memories will last forever. Mom, she's looking at me. Dad, she's breathing my air. She's touching me. Stop it. He's getting on my nerves. I hear that a lot of times when I'm driving down the road. And I'm like, if y'all don't like each other and can't get along, just don't talk to each other. They still talk. We argued about the smallest things. Sometimes, if it's escalated a bit too much or went on a far too long, my dad would turn around and look back at us from the driver's seat. Okay, girls, that's enough, he said. And that meant it was over and we'd be in trouble. No last words, no last jabs or one ups. When my dad said that, it was shut up, sit down, and be good. Mine too. This concept of enough operates the same way in the spiritual sense. When tensions and pressures mount and seem like they're going to overwhelm us, sometimes Jesus simply silences all the noise and chaos. He calls everything to come to a stop, like music conductor guiding the orchestra. He artfully cues a pause, a rest after the music builds because he knows there's beauty in the rest. After all, he spoke creation into existence, carefully crafted man, and then he rested on the seventh day, declaring to us the beauty of taking time to rest. Genesis 2 and 2. He knows that rest is good for our souls, even when our culture pushes us towards never ending work. Favorite stories in the Bible is found in Mark when Jesus and his disciples, excuse me, take a boat across the Sea of Galilee at night. Jesus taught the people all day by the seaside and then decided to set up camp on the other side of the sea. While the disciples are on the boat making their way across Galilee, my roosters are just a crowing. The Bible says, and there arose a great storm of the wind, and the waves beat into the ship, so that it was now full. And he was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. And they awake him, saying unto him, Master, carest thou not that we perish? And he arose and rebuked the wind, and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Mark 4:37 through 39. I love this passage because it's present humanity and it is essence of God in his glory. When the storm became dangerous and fierce, the disciples, trained fishermen now with experience, began to panic. What a storm, they realized in this moment that the ship may go under and they may lose their lives. Here is the place where fear builds and panic begins to settle in. But Jesus looks over the sea and speaks three small words directly into the fierce night. Peace, be still. Into a major ocean, y'all. Stop it. Now stop it. And that peace be still. That's what he's saying. Stop it. When our life's chaotic and we don't know what we're going to do, God help me. I don't know how to get through this. Lord, what am I going to do? How am I going to eat next week? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do on and on and on? Stop and praise him. Stop, pray and praise him. Those are the three P's. Pray, praise, and praise him. Anyways, sorry, I just went blank. Anyway, basically, stop and praise him. Stop worrying about little things. He's got you. And everything stops all at once. The ship settles down, the waves fade, and the stars come out. The disciples take a breath. Whew, I could just imagine. This reminds me of my father turning around in that van and looking at our tension and conflict and saying, All right, that's enough of that. Jesus was saying to the chaos, to the terror, and to the fear that surrounded his disciples, That's enough. And everything was still. He commands peace for us to think about the chaos that we allow to build in our everyday lives. We read the news, see the negativity in the world, and become anxious. We reply, boss or friend. We second guess our parenting style over decisions of our kids. We stress over our finances. We wonder whether or not we've let someone down. We question if the people around us, like us, we compare ourselves to other moms or dads, leaders, coworkers. We worry if we can provide for our families. I've met people who live in constant fear, magnifying the negative rather than their God. It's human nature. We allow anxious, chaotic thoughts to mount up until we, like the disciples, question whether or not we will survive this. Or perhaps these situations aren't caused by our own making. Perhaps the pressure of work is mounting up, or sickness has reared its ugly head in your family. Perhaps you are not used to parenting kids in this season, or you're going through a time of loss. Be assured that while we may be overwhelmed by situations in life, Jesus has everything in control. He isn't afraid of the panic we have worked ourselves into or situations that leave us feeling overwhelmed. He simply looks at it all square on and in a moment silences it with enough. He did it for me, and as a newlywed, as a sweet church working at a wonderful job with fantastic leadership and coworkers in a beautiful little mountain town. I was tired under the pressure of all the weekly responsibilities and the personal expectations I had for myself. And in a moment, God come to a screeching halt on that sort of paused life. Talking about 2020 COVID. I was able to take time to improve myself, to take more time with my walk with God, improve my curriculum, organize and clean, sort through emotions, focus on my youth girls, connect with my husband, glean new ideas from good book, podcasts, feel rested, spend time outdoors, refocus on personal goals. It was a space for grace. The shutdown came with its own challenges, like my husband and I contracting the virus and having to quarantine for 2 whole weeks. But I do believe that God works everything for our good in his glory. Romans 8:20. And he is able to still all the noise and the chaos in the moment, even in uncharacteristic ways. Maybe it happened to you and you haven't reorganized it. Maybe God has whispered enough into your life and caused a halt to something in order to give you a space to breathe, time to pray, and remove anxiety. When one thing suddenly ends, a job, a season in ministry, a season of parenting, a pursuit, or a relationship, it's easy to feel like you failed. Or maybe this just adds to a growing, deep rooted fear you've had since you were a child that you're not good enough. Because God's enough does not always look the way that we expect it to. Sometimes it looks like and feels different, coming in form of missed opportunities, setbacks, or diseases. Take heart. God might be shutting down the noise in our lives in order to awaken the spirit inside of you. He knows that when all the waves of tension subside, you will be able to take a breath and see clearly again. His enough is giving you rest, even when it doesn't feel like it. At our wedding, Josh's father came up to lead a prayer over us. It was beautiful. After we were pronounced man and wife and received our friends in the foyer of the church, we saw the ambulance pull up outside the church with flashing lights. Panicking, we both ran back inside the reception area. Josh's dad was laying on some chairs in the back room, having just suffered a mild heart attack. He was taken away to the hospital in front of friends, and we had to feed each other cake over FaceTime so his parents could still watch. While we were on the honeymoon, he had a sextuple heart bypass surgery. Since then, my father-in-law has been in and out of the hospital too many times to count. Some of the bypasses failed and his arteries began to close back up. In April 2019, he was taken to stay at a hospitality house right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, while they performed a new artery treatment on him each day for 7 weeks. Josh's parents pastored a small church 40 minutes from us. They have poured themselves into the ministry, putting others before themselves a moment of time and the promise of victory. Psalm 19:30 says, "It is finished." What happened next? The veil is torn into the temple. Darkness covers the earth. The New Testament covenant is established, and then sin is forever defeated. His followers are given power over sin and a way to escape judgment. It was as if Jesus looked around him at the darkness, chaos, and sin in the world and proclaimed through his bodily sacrifice and through his word, "That's enough." There are countless times when God steps in and stops the madness with enough. And when God says enough, all of creation stands to attention. He speaks, the chaos is silent. When God says enough, everything stops and we rest. So, things that go on in your life sometimes you just kind of wonder if God just leaves you out there stranded, thinking He's never going to help you. And you cry out to Him, asking Him, God, how much more can I handle? I just can't do in this. You've got to do something. When in reality, He the whole time, and He knows what you can and what you can't. So, a couple questions. The first one says, what are some benefits of God speaking enough into our lives? And I believe, and you can, it was a hard time for me because I really couldn't. But I used to just think in the beginning, well, how am I going to? He left. I didn't have a job. I didn't have nothing. No job. And then Toby, y'all stop. Just all these things, and I remember saying, God, I know I wanted him to leave because he was going to leave anyways. I just said, if you're a man, a real man, you leave this house by Sunday so that me and your son could have a place to live. So I made him leave. But then I remember thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? And I just broke down. But God helped me. He gave me a job within that fast, 2 weeks, if even that. And then our life just started kind of gathering stuff up back together again. And before you know it, I had been working. We had a new place to live and just all these things. But you have to trust God the whole time. Number 3 says, can you relate to Jesus' disciples in the boat in any way? Yes. So many times life is coming at you 90 to nothing, and you feel like you just can't take anymore. Kind of like those disciples. They're in that boat and they're thinking, what's he down there sleeping for? We're going to die. And he don't even care. And it kind of says that, this is what they were talking about. Wondering why he was down there sleeping and how he's sleeping like a baby so peacefully and that boat's being torn apart, basically. And so I think we all have felt at times that God's walked away from us or he just don't care. Or he's so busy with everybody else, he don't care about our little bitty thing. Oh, I got a splinter in my finger and it's been in there for 4 days and I can't get it out. And my hand hurts me really bad. And I guess God just doesn't care. And that's crazy. But I mean, the little things. How can we know that Jesus has our best interests at heart? Because he is our creator and he died for us. That's how you know. Without anything else, that's how you know. Number 5 says, when we feel missed opportunities or disappointments, what should we do? If you have an opportunity or disappointment, opportunities, if it's not the will of the Lord, it's not going to happen. It's going to pass you up. And that's what should be your prayer. I talked about not too long ago about one of my things. And as I tried to go to work for Clayton Mobile Homes, they had a position. They had called me for interview. I went in. The guy said, we really like your stuff. I want you to talk with the head guy, blah, blah, blah. We'll call you for a second interview and bring you in. I said, okay. And before I had walked into that interview, I sat in the parking lot and I said, Lord, if this job is not what you want me to have or where you want me to be at this time, then you don't let them call me. Just don't let me get the job. I've never heard from them. And I remember at one time it kind of crossed my mind. I thought, seriously, they took somebody else knowing, and I was door dashing at the time and finishing up Jackson Hewitt last year. So when I to take food in there, there was still nobody at those other 2 desks. I thought, well, they hadn't hired anybody yet. And then a second time I went in there weeks later, maybe a month, there was a young girl in there. And a friend of mine said, oh, she's from the part, I mean, she was working for Clayton already. She just moved into the office. I'm like, okay. They still had the other desk. They still have never filled the other desk. But excuse me, we're all human. So we're gonna question. I wonder why they didn't call me. What did I not have that they needed? Why'd they lie to me? Those kind of things. But God protected me for whatever reason not to give me that job. And so that's exactly what I asked him for. Don't let me get it if it's not your will. And it wasn't his will. So scriptures you can read that help, kind of like with this one, is Mark chapter 4, 37 through 39, Exodus 3, 7 and 8, John 8, 10 and 11, and Luke 7, 11 through 17. The prayer today says, Jesus, sometimes I've become so focused on my responsibilities and expectations that I forget to rest. Thank you for speaking enough into my life and silencing the chaos, even in unexpected ways. Help me to recognize your hand in my life and trust that you are working it all out for my good, even in the middle of the sickness, pain, and loss. I know that you want what's best for me and that you have good plans for my life. I know I can trust you. Help me to embrace the rest you've given me. And that's a really good prayer. Let me tell y'all something real fast. Today's the 7th. It's a Thursday. Last Friday was the last time I had worked because I had a tooth that's kind of messed with me forever. I'm fixing to get it out. But point is, that just crossed my mind. And the first time I read this book in my Facebook Live, I didn't have that issue. But last Friday I had worked and I come home about 2, and normally I work 7 to 5. But since I started doing my lives, um, so I come home about 2 that day, mouth hurting. And immediately I called the doctor before I even got home. And I was like, look, this is what's going on. Toby, my mouth is hurting. Da 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 da. He sent me some medicine. And all Saturday it was worse. Sunday it was worse. Sunday night I finally went to the ER. It got so bad. I seen the dentist on Monday morning, and there was infection bad enough that my whole mouth, all of the side, was like swollen, huge. And I remember thinking, well, I don't have my little turkey neck now because it's a big ball, and it just kind of kept going up the side. Anyways, he said, well, I really need to take that tooth out, but there's such bad infection in there. Just go home and rest. What did we just read? God sometimes lets circumstances in our life come to make us stop and rest. And I was saying that I work 7 days a week because I pay the main bills. My husband pays the house payment and the car payment and a couple other little things that he has, but I pay all the other bills. So I'd be stressing half the time. I'd make some money, and the other days I wouldn't make hardly anything. Well, for the past couple of weeks, I'm looking back thinking, all right, Lord, he's made me stop and rest because he made it in a point to give me enough that I was able to pay on a couple of bills, pay some on them, not pay them off, but pay them enough that wasn't going to get the lights cut off or the water cut off or whatever. And so I feel like now, all right, Lord, getting on to me kind of thing, because he made me. I was complaining about not having any money really made the last couple of weeks. It's been horrible. And then the Lord made me take a time to rest. I couldn't work on Saturday. I was in so much pain I couldn't. And I had taken a pill. I had an allergic reaction, just all these things. And I had to sit down and rest. So my husband worked for me a few hours on Saturday to help under my name. Uh, and then Sunday we had church, and I still did not work. Normally I work after church on Sunday. I didn't work. And then when I went Monday, I worked just a little bit before I went to the dentist. Still not a lot. Excuse me. And then Tuesday, I made some pretty good money. I was able to pay on the lights and fix and pay the water. Yesterday, 2 whole runs. But the Lord's supplying. The Lord's steadily supplying the whole time. And so I just wanted to say that, just when you think you've got it all figured out, and here I was just trucking along, and God just smacked me just now and said, hey, did I make you take time to rest because you didn't listen and rest like you needed to? Yes, Lord, he did. Anyways, just know God loves you and he only wants what's best for you. It's not trying to hurt you. He takes you through seasons in your life and brings you through on the other side just when you think that he doesn't care anymore. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this today. Leave a comment or something if it's something you want to say, or something maybe God's been doing in your life. Maybe he took a time to make you stop and wait and just take a rest. Anyways, y'all have a good afternoon, and we'll see you next time. Toby!